Okay, in the previous video we built this table, and now we want to create the textures to apply it to give it, kind of like a realistic look. Now, textures are created down here. Actually, they're called materials, and then materials can be applied to the models simply by dragging. So to create a material, I'm going to go to Create and New Material, and this window appears in the Attributes Manager, but sometimes it's easier to work just by double clicking, and that will give you the material editor. And the material editor right now is showing me color, diffusion, luminance, transparency, reflectance, environment, fog, bump, normal, alpha, glow, displacement, etc. So there's a bunch of different dials and a bunch of different controls that you can apply here. So under color, if we wanted a flat color, we could just set a flat color, but we want a texture. So this texture option, if you click this button, there are some basic preset textures and surfaces that can be applied. And then over here on the right, you can choose a texture. So I'm going to click on this option and go into that folder where I saved all those different textures. And I believe it's this wood texture that I want to try, so I'm going to choose this wood texture, and I'm going to click open on that. And this is just asking me if I want to move it to the location, and I'm just going to say no on that. So this gives me a rough idea of what the texture is going to look like. And then the other thing that we want to do is turn on the bump map, and then for the bump itself, we want to select the same, not the same texture, but what I've done is I've created another version of this image in Photoshop that's just grayscale, and it's been bumped up a little bit. And what this does for a bump map, it will just apply the texture to the actual material. So that'll give it a raise, and we can increase or decrease the strength to get different effects with that. So I'm just going to increase the strength on that. Now this surface, the table itself, might reflect materials, and reflectance is on by default. So, and that's fine. We can just leave that on. There are some other controls here, but for now, this is the kind of material that I want. So I'm going to close down the material editor. And then from the material area down here, I'm going to click and drag, and you can click and drag to apply, and you can see what you're applying it to. You can drag to the objects, or you can drag to the objects in the object manager. So if I drag to the table null object, it's going to apply to all of the different elements within. And you can kind of see what this looks like. With the basic lighting, it doesn't really do too much. It gives us kind of the look and feel that we're going for. Now, these items inside the object manager are called tags, and if you select the tag for the material, then you can make changes to the material itself. So right now the projection is set to UV mapping, and the side is set to both. And if we change the mapping, you'll see that it affects how the material gets applied to the actual object. So there's some different options here: spherical, cylindrical, flat, cubic, which is pretty much what we want here. So that's the texture applied. If we do a quick render on this to see what it looks like, you'll see what that looks like, because it doesn't look good in the normal view, but you can see that the texture is being applied. So right now it looks okay. Lighting will have a determinant factor on this whole thing once we add to lighting, but right now we're just doing modeling. So that's creating textures, and we can create other textures as well. The same process would go you create the texture, you can apply the texture that you've downloaded, and then you can create the bump map. And creating the bump map is just creating a copy and converting it into a black and white file, and you can adjust the color contrast on that file and then use that as the bump map. Okay, in the next video we'll take a look at how to model with a lathe object, and then we're going to create a lamp that we can put on top of this table or on the side or somewhere else.